Welcome to the Her Voice Shines podcast, where we celebrate the power, brilliance, and resilience of women everywhere. I'm your host, Shanasia Washington. Join us as we share inspiring stories and insights from extraordinary women who have found their voice and are making a difference. Together, we'll create a ripple effect, illuminating the path to visibility and empowerment. Let's break barriers, shatter ceilings, and lift each other up. In each episode, we dive deep into the journeys of women who have turned their challenges into triumphs and their dreams into reality. Whether you're looking for motivation, guidance, or a community that understands your journey, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and remember, let your voice shine. Hi, everybody, and welcome back. It is another fabulous episode of Her Voice Shines podcast. And you guys know this is one of my favorite places to be. We have another amazing guest. And you know, I'm Shanasia Washington, your fabulous host from Houston, Texas. And this guest is going to talk to us a lot about leadership and really her transition in that space. I definitely see some parallels, and I'm looking at the information I researched, but I want her to tell her story. So she's going to come to the stage and she's going to tell us her name, where she's streaming from, and you know, we waste no time. We kick right into her story, and here she is.
Hi, everyone. I am Lucy Todd. I am coming to you from the Seattle, Washington area, and I am a certified professional coach here to talk to you about my journey from corporate to career coaching. So thanks for having me on the podcast, Shanasia. My career discovery coaching practice is called Lucy Todd Coaching, and I hope that my story resonates with those of you listening, because I felt alone in my career unhappiness for a long time, and it kept me stuck for way too long. And I'm just hoping that resonates with others, and that you can kind of find your way out too. So for nearly 10 years, but actually right out of college, I worked at a digital agency. I started as an intern. I quickly moved up. Within a year, I was the lead of my own team. So on the surface, like, I got lucky and it seemed like I had it all. I had the recognition, I had the upward mobility that many people dream of. But inside, I was still just constantly questioning if this was what I was going to do forever. This was a really fast-paced environment, and it was very B2B, business to business. We were a brand that was helping other brands. And despite working with clients, the work just really didn't feel meaningful to me. And with such high client expectations, it was an always on kind of work. Now, we weren't like the New York or LA 24/7, 365 kind of agency, but there were definitely early hours, late hours, weekend demands that would come up from time to time. And that was just really part of the role, part of the industry. So I found myself just basically anxious and stressed nearly all the time, even on weekends. And there's so much information about self-care, about like reframing how you feel about your job, but just none of that really stuck. None of it really seemed to have a big impact for me. But still, I thought, like, okay, this is just how work is, right? It's just how work is for everyone. So I basically grew to be comfortably uncomfortable. I figured if I just made peace with the fact that I was going to be anxious and that work was going to be stressful, it could just become my new norm. And maybe, hopefully, I would just learn to live with it. Like I said, I still felt grateful for my job, especially as I watched others around me struggle to get jobs with reasonable pay, much less be able to climb the ladder and, you know, be in leadership. But at the same time, I was just deeply unfulfilled. Yet still the idea of leaving a stable and successful career seemed impossible, especially because I really had no idea what I would rather do. I just knew that this was stressing me out. So as I ruminated and I stressed, I started to kind of dig into the details. Like, why was I so unhappy? Why was I so stressed? And I realized that a key component was that I loved supporting others in my work, but I didn't want to lead from a position of power. Like, the manager role, the leadership role wasn't sitting well with me. I was really craving a role where I could support others one-to-one, like in a human-centric interpersonal relationship. instead of a business first kind of mentality that this leadership role had me in. So for me, this was a huge realization, but also a terrifying one, because at this point, I realized that fundamentally this position wasn't right for me, but I was so scared to do it. I didn't know how I could leave or how to figure out what I would rather do. And obviously, you got to have some sort of sense of direction if you're going to make a big change. So it was actually our team's business coach who suggested that I get strategic to finally solve my questions instead of just worrying, stressing, venting like I had been. On his advice, I set up a career offsite day for myself. So you may be familiar with the offsite. I participated in many corporate offsites with our team before, but this was different because instead of planning for the future of the business in a group setting with all the other execs, I was going to go off on my own to plan the future of my own career, spending a day diving deep and exploring my own feelings and setting goals to actually make this change. So thanks to that day, I could finally put all the pieces together. Once I saw everything I wanted and didn't want in a career laid out in front of me, I realized that being a coach checked off every box for me. I quickly realized I wanted to help others even navigate the same territory that I had gone through. I wanted to help others find careers that fit with who they are and what they want. So after earning my coach credential, I started Lucy Todd Coaching to kind of fuse career coaching and life coaching, working with people to understand themselves better, improve their confidence, and realize that they deserve a satisfying career. So we do a lot of what I did at my own career offsite, like uncovering the root causes of career unhappiness, identifying what's stopping you from making a change, and figuring out what's actually interesting to you. The more time I spend on this, the more sure that I am, and that's why I'm here.
You know, Lucy, I love it. I mean, the corporate leadership space is I call it a tricky ground. I mean, because I walked it, my corporate career is about 13 years and I left in 2021. So I kind of know the woes of that. But one of the things I definitely want you to tap into is like this journey to trusting yourself, because I found that in leadership, I didn't always have the support clearly. So there was this part of me that struggled a bit with the trust for myself, right? Because I definitely don't know how to do the tasks all the time and don't have the support. So that was a journey for me first to trust myself within the corporate walls. And then as I began to transition, it was kind of a deeper level of trust that had to kind of be in there to start this thing on my own. So just talk about your journey with trusting yourself, and then maybe give a woman or whoever is looking maybe some tips to lean into that trust in yourself process.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's so interesting because, as I said, like I kind of got the upward mobility. I got to be able to rise through the ranks, but I still really suffered with that imposter feeling of like, oh, what did I do to deserve to be here? And so even for 10 years, as I became a master of my job and I got promoted and I kept taking on new responsibilities and becoming an expert in those, I still didn't have a lot of self-confidence. And I think that really played into how stressed I was and how worried I was about like whether I could find something I'd rather do and whether I could succeed there. So it's definitely a journey. It's not an overnight thing. And it's not something that like one mindset shift or reframe is going to change. I think for me, the confidence came from taking the leap, if that makes sense. I don't consider myself a risk taker, but setting things in motion, having that offsite day, getting my plan in order for when I was going to quit and what I was going to do after, and like having an actual timeline, a financial plan for it, that helped kind of solidify the plan so that I didn't feel like I was jumping off into absolutely nothing. And from there, I think just every step started to build a little more confidence. I don't think that I could have felt 100% ready to jump. And I don't think that I could have felt that I was 100% likely to succeed until I actually made the leap and put myself in the position where I was committed to doing it. So I guess that's just to say that I think I've heard a phrase similar to like confidence comes through action. And that's really what I found to be true is not expecting to have the full confidence and the full self-trust 100%. It's more like building a muscle or getting that practice in. So that's what I would say to folks who are feeling concerned that, you know, they don't have the self-belief or they're not really sure that they can do it is, unfortunately you might not be 100% sure, but it's sort of, you get to that point where do the risks and the rewards balance out? That was my experience, and that's how I'd encourage people to look at it.
Yeah, it's good and powerful. And you talked about that kind of transition to action, and that's where people get stuck, right? Because you have the thought and the thing. I read something in your intake form. You talked about burnout, and 2020, 2021, I was like the poster child for burnout. I was the poster child for burnout, Lucy. I really was. I can talk about it lightly now, but it definitely was not light at that time. Also, too, because I think these have a connection. You talked about this action of moving from worrying to actually doing the thing. So for me, it was the burnout, then it was the worry. It was the burnout, it was the worry. I don't know how to get out of this. I am packed with tasks, and it was an endless cycle. Walk us through your burnout, and then how did you? I know that you say you talked to a coach, and they basically recommended that you do some things, but still, it takes some mindset shifts to get out of worry. And I want you to talk about your process with that, or at least at bay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can really relate to that. I felt so stuck in that too, and I think that was a big reason why I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do next, was because just having the energy to wake up and go to work and come home from work and think about work and sleep and do it all over again did take up 100% of my energy, and on the weekends too. So for me, what I came to realize was that a crucial component of it for me was going to be able to be taking a break. And I know that that is a tough subject. It's dicey. There's a lot of planning. There's a lot of privilege. There's a lot of consideration involved in taking a break, and not everyone can necessarily put that into action, especially without a plan. So but that ended up being a big component of it for me, was I knew that I was just going to keep spinning in this cycle unless I gave myself a break from, 12 years or, all the schooling that I had gone to fed straight into that 10 years of full-time employment without any breaks. And I just knew my brain was just going to keep cycling and cycling through that worry unless I gave myself some time. So the offsite day that I mentioned, that kind of gave me the confidence to do it, because at least then I had clarity on basically what I was going to do next. And then I just needed to take some time off and then put that plan into action. So I suppose I planned the day. It's easy enough for most of us to find one day somewhere that you can take off to really dedicate to thinking about your future. And I think that that's incredibly important, because I didn't get anywhere by thinking about it on the commute home or like worrying about it on a Friday night. That wasn't pushing me forward. I needed to sit in one specific headspace to figure out what came next. But then again, I really do credit my time of taking a break in between my full-time employment and my next thing to kind of work through the burnout and get my head straight and gear up to do something else.
Yeah, that's good. And thank you for sharing that. So I do know that this is new, right? This part of the journey is new. Lucy Todd coaching is new. Talk to us about where you are in the space of new. How does it just feel like on a day-to-day? Because I'll be honest, like I left in 2021 corporate, but I really didn't start walking this thing out until 2022. So it's still I think new to me, right? So you got 2 years versus a 13-year career. I think it's still new in terms of, what you've been doing. And then there are days people will pat me on the back like, oh my gosh, Sinead, it's so great you're doing this. I'm like, well, I quit 3 times in my head today. Just to be quite clear, I want you to talk about that journey of newness. Because sometimes people think this thing is just a walk in the park, and we're trying to build this thing out. We're trying to acquire content. There's a newness to it that we're still figuring out. So just talk about where you are, and then maybe even some of those things that you find challenging, but you're just committed to keep going because maybe you believe so much in this thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, starting anything new can be really scary, especially when you don't have that 100% self-belief and you're not, totally sure it's going to work out because maybe it doesn't totally line up with the thing that you just spent 10, 12, 13 years doing. But for me, it's interesting. I found that the newness was actually a huge motivator for me. And that was surprising, I think, to me, because I have always considered myself kind of a perfectionist, like needing to feel like I have expertise in something in order to do it. And as it turned out, taking the leap into newness has actually built up my confidence way more than mastering my corporate career ever did. I think it's just exciting because I'm now more in this learning space than I am in the proving myself space. And I mean, it's a little bit of both when you're starting something new, but I actually feel less compelled to prove myself now in this newness than I did in the corporate structure where I sort of felt I had to prove myself and my worth every day to continue belonging there. So yeah, I'm just finding a lot of energy in the newness. But it's not easy. It's not a walk in the park. So people are probably wondering, okay, what did you do after you took that break? Which, by the way, my break was sitting on the couch and watching Grey's Anatomy from start to finish for like weeks on weeks. Truly just decompressing. Like I said, I didn't have any more room for any more consideration or thoughts or worry at that point. I needed to turn off. And so when I came back, I knew, okay, for a lot of folks, if they're starting something new, they're going to be starting it alongside their old career, waiting for that new thing to kind of take off a little and then jumping. And for me, I knew that I was just in such a rut that I didn't have that kind of runway. I wasn't going to make it that long to like start this new thing and wait for it to get to a certain point and then quit. So what I had ended up doing is turning all the skills that I had from my corporate career into freelance. And freelancing, a lot of the skills that I had before are basically writing, editing, proofreading, marketing stuff, and turn that freelance because who knew I could actually make way more on an hourly basis freelancing than I could in my leadership role. So I figured that'll be my new like stable thing while I can build up my coaching career and face that. So and see that come to fruition. So that's been my plan, and that has given me a sort of a sense of the stability and the financial aspect, which is that's just a fact. We all need to have our financial considerations covered when we're looking to start something new, and everybody's roadmap is going to look different. And that's what I think is so cool about coaching in its basic form, is that it's about what the client wants and what they're comfortable with, not the coach saying, okay, here's what you should do, XYZ, you should do it exactly this way because that's how I did it. Like none of that. We don't do that. We work on developing the plan that it makes the most sense for the individual client. And because I mean, that's what I did, and that has worked out so well for me. I don't think it wouldn't have been the same journey if I had tried to follow someone else's exact roadmap.
That's good. There's two things I want to highlight that you said. One of them was saying not having to prove yourself anymore. And that's a free space to be, because that constant proving, because guess what? The bar is always changing. When leadership changes, when the company structure changes, that bar is always changing. So that constant I have to prove, it gets old. And I'm not subscribing to that way of life anymore. So it's interesting that you said that. And this other thing, which parallels my story, you said, I didn't have time to wait. I was in a rut. So I didn't have time to kind of wait for this thing to take off before I left. And it was the exact same story for me. Like I didn't even have products and services fully defined. I want to be very clear in that before I said, you know what, no, I really have to go. So when we talk about these conversations, it's important to me to drive the fact that, don't let it get to where you're in the rut. If there are things in you that you feel like this is just not working out, I need to exit, you need to take the action and you need to raise your hand and get the proper help if you don't know how to do that. Because we think that we have forever and a day when time is just ticking. So when you said I got into a rut, I got chills because I know the rut and I know running from the rut, and that is not a pretty place to be. So I tell people all the time, don't let it get that bad. If you are going somewhere and you know that likely nothing's going to change around here, you need to make the change. I want to ask you this, Lucy. You are a career coach, and I think sometimes people don't even realize when they need a coach for whatever. Maybe it's career, maybe it's life, maybe it's business, whatever it is. What are some signs that someone in their career may need to reach out to Lucy Todd to say, hey, I think I need a coach?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think it can be challenging. And I think there's just so much confusion about what a coach is and what a coach does. And there are so many different types of coaches out there. So in general, I would say like signs that you could use the support of a coach broadly. Could be the rut that we talked about. If you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like you're repeating the same thoughts over and over in your head, you're facing the same challenges day in and day out, and all you can really do is ruminate about them or vent about them, but you don't seem to be making any progress. That's one sign that working with a coach could help you. If you're getting a lot of advice from people, then a coach might actually be able to support you in a different way. I think that's something that can be surprising to folks when they learn about coaching. In general, it's usually not advice. Now, this can vary from coach to coach, but a lot of times our friends and family will give us lots of advice, or our bosses and coworkers when we're dealing with a career struggle. They're like, oh, I was feeling some way similar, and this is what I did in that situation. Or, I think you're really talented at this. Why don't you do this for a job? And sometimes that can just really rub us the wrong way, even if they mean well. And sometimes even if there's a glimmer in there of like, okay, well, that might be, but like, do you know me better than me? Like, am I really in a position where I'm wanting to take advice from other people, or am I here because I haven't been listening to myself? So if you're feeling like you're bristling from some advice, or you're just not getting what you need from advice, that could be another sign that a coach could support you, because we're really trained to ask questions and support the client from where they're coming from. So rather than us telling you what specifically you should do, we'll explore what's behind what you're feeling, what's stopping you from uncovering what you'd rather be doing, and also getting that self-confidence and trust to be able to uncover what you might rather be doing. And then I think the last and just most important one is feeling ready to make a change. And you might not be 100% there, but if you're thinking about working with a coach, you're probably going to want to be about 80% there, to the point where you're like, all right, this isn't going to go on forever. I'm in the next 6 months, in the next year, I want to be somewhere else. If you're feeling that way, you could use the support of a coach. If you're feeling less than that, if you're just maybe kind of starting to think about it, but you're not 100% sure, sometimes coaching could be a step too far, because you're not quite ready to make the change. You're maybe feeling comfortably uncomfortable, like I was saying. So I think those are some of the signs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those are a couple that I definitely think that I resonated when I was toward the end of my career. Let me ask you this. Have you redefined success since corporate, or has there been a place in your journey where you've had kind of an aha moment where like, maybe I thought success was this at some point, but now I'm just redefining it and I feel this way about success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. As I was talking about my career, I was saying, well, it seems to have all the check boxes of success. I'm making a salary that is comfortable for my lifestyle. I am, well regarded by my friends and colleagues. My clients are happy with me. There's just all these different check boxes for I should be successful. And yet I still felt unfulfilled, constantly stressed, anxious. So how successful is that really if on a day-to-day basis you are exhausted and feeling uncomfortable with where you are? So I really started to question what success was like at that point. And so now, if you would look at where I am in business, you would say she's not successful. I'm not making as much per year as I used to be in corporate yet. I don't have a fancy title. Well, I guess I'm owner of my business. That's a pretty fancy title. But yeah, I mean, financially, structurally, I don't have gainful employment and I'm not making X amount of dollars that I used to be making. But in my freelance career, I am making more hourly, like I mentioned, actually quite a bit more hourly. I have 100% autonomy over my time. And even when things get changed up, clients come and go, different events with my career coaching business go one way or the other, there's a lot of ups and downs. I'm able to weather those better than I ever was before because I feel purposeful in what I'm doing now. I feel I have control over my life and my career. And I enjoy what I'm doing every day. I'm really enjoying freelancing a lot more than I ever did working corporate. And I'm just so excited to see the future of Lucy Todd coaching ahead of me. I feel fulfilled. I feel so much more peaceful and less anxious day to day. And I really just attribute that to the self-discovery that I did, figuring out what was fulfilling and meaningful to me and actually going after it. It's built my confidence and it's changed my interpretation of success. So
that's good. And that time autonomy is a game changer. It doesn't mean that you won't be busy, right? It doesn't mean that you won't still have competing priorities, but the way in which you can use that time and navigate this space completely changes when you have that autonomy. So thank you for touching on that point. That's beautiful. I want to ask you this, Lucy, how do you work with the client specifically? Do you have like where they can just maybe get like a session with you? Do you have a full-on package where they can work with you for 6 months, or how do the services look? I mean, this of course may change, but how are they currently positioned to support the client?
Yeah. So right now I do have one signature package and I'm working on a few variations on that. But my main offering is called the 4-Step Career Reset. And it's centered around a career offsite day, a lot like what I talked about at the beginning. So our first session, it's getting to know each other, outlining what your current situation is like and where you're feeling stuck and why you want to make a change. And then our second session is that offsite day. It's currently a 4-hour virtual offsite. I know that could sound a little intimidating at first. My own offsite was 6 hours of me and me only in a room. So I feel like 4 hours with a coach and a client one-on-one is, sufficiently intense to get to the bottom of what you're experiencing, why your current career feels so unsatisfying, what specifically has led you to this point of wanting to make a change, and then a lot of visioning work about what a future, more fulfilling career could look like. So there's a lot of targeted exercises that I actually custom design the agenda for each person to be able to best use those 4 hours to where we get from point A, I don't know what I'm going to be doing, and I'm scared, to point B, okay, I'm really starting to see it come together. Then there is a follow-up session after the offsite where we break down, bring out key reflections from the offsite and bring to light anything that the client felt was really impactful, that gave them the most insight. Then we begin to actually build an action plan and have a final session that's troubleshooting as you get started in that action plan. And the action plan, the timeline is 100% up to you. Again, this is client led. So you'll never come into a session with me and have me say, all right, by next week, I want you putting in your notice or something. That's not going to happen. We build your timeline based on your comfort level. That could be anywhere from 3 months to 6 months to a year to a 3-year plan, 100% up to the client. But again, it's basically just structured to go from point A, stressed and have no idea what to do next, to point B, actually taking steps to get towards a more fulfilling future.
Okay, I love it. So how do the viewers connect with you? Can you give us your perhaps social media, websites, whatever information you want to give for a connection? If you could please provide that for our listeners and viewers, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me at lucytoddcoaching.com. I'm also on Instagram at lucytoddcoaching. That's the platform where I'm most active. You can also find me on Facebook, Lucy Todd Coaching. And then on LinkedIn, I'm Lucy Todd CPC, which I think is my little handle here on the podcast. So I'm around. When you go to any of those, the website or my social media channels, you can also find information about joining my newsletter, where you'll get some of the most up-to-date information on some free coaching events that I put together, and just general support and value as you kind of move along from not sure if I want to quit to really feeling like I need to make a change.
That's good, Lucy. I want to cue to your final thoughts. If nothing else, if people see nothing else but this particular snippet of this interview, what would those final thoughts be? And anything that you feel that we didn't weave into, you share here.
Yeah, I would just say if you are feeling stuck in a 24/7 stress cycle, if your Saturdays are almost as stressful as your Sunday scaries and your Mondays, if you are really just feeling unfulfilled, maybe purposeless, or just ready to figure out what it is you'd rather be doing so you're not spending the next 1 year, 5 years, 10 years in the same situation, then those could all be signs that it could be helpful for you to work with me, to really find, again, this support that's led by you, driven by you, designed for you, instead of somebody else's picture of what your success should look like. So I basically just want to let everybody know, if you're feeling like ungrateful, I guess, for feeling unhappy in your job, this is the space where you can come to know that you're not alone in that, and that you don't have to feel guilty or worried about that, and that there are opportunities for you to make a change. That's really why I'm here, why I've started my business, and why I'm so excited to be out here helping to support people, to just let them know that it's okay to want a different path. And it's very okay to be afraid of moving into that next phase. And that does not mean that you can't do it.
I love it. Those were great final thoughts. I want to thank you for being here and sharing this space, and let us know about your journey and some of those steps that you took to change your trajectory. And that's what women need to hear, that it can be done. May not always be the easiest, but if you are going to take those steps to do it, we have living testament that have come on this show repeatedly saying that getting the right help, calling it out, and claiming that you're going to change your situation is where the power is. So again, Lucy, thank you so very much for being here. Until next time, we will be back with another fabulous show, and we are out. Thank you.